Hi everyone, I'm Dr.Animaction. Welcome to the second of my quick little Doc's Top 5 videos. In this one I thought I'd stick with Disney and look at movies released this millennia. I didn't really specify in the last video, but since everything on there was an animated movie, yes, including Tron, to some extent at least, I'll keep this one animated as well, and we'll do a separate one for each era that covers the live action stuff. Oh, and both Ghibli and Marvel movies are out of bounds for this list. They'll get their own chance in the future. Remember that these videos are purely my opinion, and are in no way intended to invalidate or redirect your own opinions on the topics. Oh, and that they're based only on what I've seen. If there's a movie that you think I'm stupid for not including, then maybe I haven't gotten to it yet. Or maybe I am actually stupid. Anything's possible. In fact, I welcome hearing how my thoughts differ from each viewer's in the comments, and hope these videos serve as conversation starters. Just don't actually call anyone stupid for having a different lineup than yours. Before you tell me yours, though, here are my top 5 post-2000 animated Disney movies. My number 5 spot goes to a movie that I grew to love more and more based on the strength of the follow-up animated series it received. The Emperor's New Groove was a pretty hilarious story of the rich and powerful getting an education in the plight of the regular people, with an excellent voice cast that included a best-ever performance from David Spade, the impressively versatile John Goodman, one of the original Catwomen with Eartha Kitt, Patrick Warburton, and a lot more. Yzma and Kronk quickly became one of my favorite villain duos of any Disney property, and the Incan Empire setting and mountains of Peru always looked amazing and created some great story opportunities. Like I said though, it was probably watching The Emperor's New School with my kids that really made me love this film, or more accurately, the franchise, as it was one of the funniest and most enjoyable shows on TV at the time, and just for the record, I'll do shows as a separate list in the future. Maybe it's not fair to transfer my enjoyment of the series onto the movie, but I'm doing it anyway, so it takes number 5 on my list. In at number 4 is a movie that I consider to be one of the best video game films of all time, even though the game it's based on is fake. Wreck-It Ralph did such a good job of presenting a fun, imaginative take on the world of video games that it's easy for any gamer to love, and the presence of various other characters from gaming history validates me classifying it as a video game movie, at least in my own mind. The movie as its own thing has a lot to offer though, with a great story about how little it means to fit in or give up what makes you special even if it sets you apart. I also love the themes of not being defined by the role someone else puts you in, but instead being able to choose a direction for yourself. The idea that we're not always stuck doing what we're doing because that's how it's always been is incredibly important. It's just full of messages that speak to me personally in a very profound way. I'm also a sucker for anything John C. Reilly is involved with, so that gave the movie a boatload of bonus points in my opinion. Though I consider the MCU stuff out of bounds for this list, the next movie is still technically based on a Marvel property. Big Hero 6 was everything a good superhero story should be, with a solid cast of interesting characters, and a lead with a rich backstory and a strong motivation for the journey he takes. The fact that the motivation for that journey morphs from revenge to protecting others, and that the film has a villain with a misguided but understandable motivation himself, add to the movie's charm. The fact that the heroes were real people, extraordinary people sure, but real nonetheless, who stepped up and used their own unique contribution to form a working, well-rounded team makes them all the more awesome, especially when you consider that each of them shows some notable neurodivergent behaviors and personality traits. I think they do a really great job in this film of just doing so organically and never making an issue of it, or even really mentioning it at all. It's something that doesn't show up enough and gives a whole segment of the population characters they can relate to. Plus, even with Hero as the main character, every other member of the team gets their time to shine throughout the story. It may not be a true ensemble cast, but it doesn't leave anyone out either. It's just a really human story told somewhat through the well-meaning eyes of a robot who most definitely isn't. I think it honestly deserves to be included in any best superhero film discussion, so it gets my number 3. The number 2 on this list goes to a movie that I think stars one of the most interesting, realistic, and responsible characters in Disney history. Brave actually has several things going for it that earn it this spot on the list for me though. I love the setting of medieval Scotland and the clan dynamics in the assembly scenes. I think the fact that Merida starts as a strong character already and rails against the limitations society places on her is far more interesting than what we see with a lot of Disney princess backstories, though it's one that's been appearing more and more since this movie was released, so I imagine it resonated with a lot of others as well. Mor'du is an awesome villain, unlike any other in Disney, since he's simply a force of nature, instead having the real conflict of the story mostly personal for Merida and a result of her own actions. And most of all, I appreciate that the crux of the plot is Merida's personality clashing with her mother's, and that the entire conflict of the movie is coming to terms with the fact that people are different, and all of those differences can be valid and meaningful regardless of the setting and set dressing. When it's all said and done with this film, it boils down to a lesson about empathy. The world could use a lot more of that. Oh, and Merida is an amazing archer, and archery is one of those things I'm a sucker for in media of all forms. Well, I want to keep this series down to a shorter, more manageable video length, so I'm going to stick with top 5, but I've decided that the honorable mentions will include the rest of my top 10 in no particular order, and with no additional discussion. For this particular video, those other 5 are Treasure Planet, WALL-E, The Incredibles, Up, and Atlantis: The Lost Empire. It wasn't at all easy to narrow that down either, since there are plenty of others out there like Finding Nemo, Tangled, and Inside Out that I would have loved to have put on the list too. So, there you go, I guess, some more honorable mentions. Make sure to share yours in the comments. Taking the top spot for me on this list is a movie I may have seen more times than any other Disney has made. It's the original Lilo and Stitch, and it was a favorite in my household when my own kids were little. This movie crams so much content into its runtime, establishing an entire galactic civilization, laying the foundation for the amazing animated series that would follow, providing a great set of main characters, and just as interesting a supporting cast. It had several hilarious moments, and then several touching and heartfelt moments that made you want to cry a few scenes later without missing a beat. The pacing and events had an organic enough flow that you weren't left with a sense of whiplash when it changed themes and moods. Plus, the Hawaii setting allowed for some of the most beautiful animation the studio's ever produced, and it provided a great source of comedic conflict as Stitch tried to act on his programming only to be stymied by the fact he was surrounded by water. The only thing you could possibly point to as a weakness for this movie is the villain, but the truth is that there really isn't any villain. Gantu was just trying to do a job, and in the end, and in the subsequent series even, helped the core group on several occasions. He's really just a guy who got a raw deal having to pursue Stitch, but if 626 was as dangerous as we were led to believe earlier in the movie, then he was honestly in the right going to such extreme lengths to capture him. Unfortunately, his efforts were eventually invalidated and his life and career kind of ruined. That's a sympathetic villain if I've ever seen one. So overall, I have no complaints about this movie and without reservation give it my top spot. But there you go, a quick list of my top 5 post-2000 Disney movies. Remember that these are my personal choices, and if they're different than yours, then that's cool. I would love to know what yours are though, so be sure to share them. Also, make sure to like and subscribe if you like this list in this format, because I plan on doing a lot of these. Thanks for watching, everyone. Stay tuned, and stay tuned, as in cartoons. Later.